Thank you and good morning to everybody. Now, this is the wrong one. Yeah. No. Which one?
It's the red one.
Ah,
or you want to switch further? This is
yeah, I want to go back to the beginning, but this is not fine because it was before. One more. Yeah. This. Okay. And I have to click this one.
This one.
And this one. Thank you so much. Sorry. Well, this is the topics that our research project had to develop was particularly related to the territorial potentials and the migration flows, particularly in the Adriatic-Ionian and Danubian macroregions. So the scope of this target analysis was mainly, as you can see, related to this region. Is close to the end of the research because we have to finish the project by July this year, and we have actually analyzed not only the EU Zaire area and the Danube area, but we have included also two countries of interest, that is Kosovo and Macedonia. And we have analyzed in the project also a set of 8 case studies that you can see here mentioned concerns Greece, 2 cases in Hungary, 2 in Italy, 1 in Serbia, 1 at the borders area between Italy and Slovenia, for reasons that I will explain later on, and the regional perspective in the Western Balkans, particularly where there is a spreading of migration, particularly that concerns the Albanians. What are the needs of the stakeholders and what we have tried to analyze? It was mainly connected to offer a picture, a clear picture of the flows of the macroregions. I will enter later on and in the details, just presenting very briefly this part, because there are some points that are very peculiar of the region and require specific attention. The same is for the socio-demographic performances that are affected by generally by a huge depopulation and a low birth rate, and I will explain also the impact of this, and to analyze the strategies to manage integration through, in particular, cohesion policy instruments, and to coping with the risk identified for local territories connected to the population that I mentioned, yes, also focusing on the opportunities to improve territorial attractiveness. Results and evidence. Well, this is the key point that I wanted to mention before. We have analyzed the 2 macro-regions, and the peculiarity of the macro-regions, particularly when we're speaking about migration, is that we have to cope with not just 1, but 4 flows. These flows are and you can see here in this map as an example, is connected to the mobility of people within the nations, within the existing states. So the people move mainly from countryside to urban areas and specifically to capitals. So you can see here, particularly in the strong green areas where the population concentrate in comparison with other areas that are suffering from depopulation. Just to give you an example, because recently we have calculated also not only the flows in percentage, but also in absolute term, and the increasing of population, for instance, in certain capitals like Tirana, Podgorica, Belgrade, Budapest, and Skopje is between the 20 and the 30% more. Of the population. So the whole population, between the 20 and the 30% of the population of that state resides into the capital. This is a very important aspect that is connected also to the trend of the population. The population is in this moment is affecting particularly Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Albania, and Bulgaria in our area. The population is between, in the last 20-30 years, between the 10 and the 20%. And Italy as well, prospectively, according to Istat data, can have a sharp decline of the population up to 54 millions. Today there are 60 millions in 2060. 65. So this is just to give you one of the example, and come back again to this slide just to show you that the migration is also particularly focused on young people, but this migration is not only within the nation state, but is within the macro region. And you can see here, for instance, this is one of the examples on the basis of the data that we were able to collect. You can see here, for instance, the mobility within the macro regions that people, when people moved to Italy, in this case. So from this map, you can see the quantity that is represented of the population that moved to Italy is represented by the circle, and the years when they moved is represented by the colors. You see that the great majority of the population moved from Romania, and then Moldavia and Albania were the other areas, much less from the other regions, but all included, they represent nearly 1 million of people. This is just to give you an example of the second floor, also because there is also this more general map that we have tried to represent the asylum seekers, the people that cross the region and moved to the other countries. The biggest circle in center is representing Germany. While the other red circle represent the countries where the people try to get the asylum. And this is just to give you an example of the people that moved across the two macro regions that we have mentioned, considering also that at least a part of the populations in the Balkans also joined this transfer population. So it's not only including people that are coming from the Middle East or the Northern Africa, but it includes also the people from the region that for other reasons, mainly connected to searching of better job opportunities or condition of life, try to join this movement and the Balkan route, or the movement across Italy to join the Northern Europe. The fourth floor that we are working on is mainly devoted to the rejections of the migrants, to the people that were rejected, which is nearly 95%. Most of these people are coming back into the macro regions, and sometimes they prefer to remain on the border of the Schengen area, and this is the reason why we are just now analyzing the area between Friuli, Venezia Giulia and Slovenia, because they are on the borders of the Schengen area, and this can be interesting from this point of view to understand what is going on in this case. So what about the recommendations that we are elaborating so far, for instance, with the support of the stakeholders? One, the recommendation that I want to mention in particular is that it's important to invite national statistic offices of all user countries to harmonize their data, because this was one of the key points. Data very often are not comparable. So this is one of the also the challenges that we had to face, and I have mentioned also in another slide. Another point that is very crucial is to consider migration, to invite governments to consider migration as a structural phenomenon and not an emergency. It's something that will last for a long time and will require long-term strategies to be faced. Within this framework, for instance, multi-level governance will be extremely important, because the public administrations of the macro regions have different competencies, and it's very important they harmonize the competencies. So this involves also the cooperation of the governments, of the cities, of the regions, or Jupani, or county, or district that we know, and at the same time, another potential recommendation is connected to the way how to match migrant experiences with abundant territorial needs. This is another key point that we have analyzed, particularly because we have some case studies that offer some interesting inputs in this sense. People that are coming from rural regions are can be much easier to be, let's say, integrated into the context, because they come back in an environment that is closer to the environment where they were used to live before, rather than to be closed in the peripheral ghettos of urban cities. So this is what the main challenge that I have that I mentioned are connected to the data gaps and to the fact that overheated the political debates on migration could have partly affected the interviewees' attitude and answer in relation to identify best practices. And the stakeholders, well, with the stakeholders we received lots of support that is provided to our team through comments, through additional data that they offer to us in addition to those that we were able to connect. And I have also to say that we had particularly a weekly contact with the lead stakeholder, which provided us to very stimulating inputs, particularly on topics that they were interested, connected to the territorial cohesion that is their own main interest and focus. Thank you for your attention.